I'm the boat program supervisor and media liaison for all things related to whales and dolphins. So we're going to talk about career connections. If you wanted to get a job doing data collection on whales, what does that look like? What kind of skills do you need? You'll also have an opportunity to live chat some questions through the comment section below of the video, and my friends here in the studio can help relay those questions to me, and I'll help answer as many as I can. Now, I gotta say, my job is pretty awesome. A lot of people love the stuff about whale watches. But what about me? How does someone like me or you get into this role? Because this wasn't the first thing I planned on. I grew up in Colorado, not a lot of whales in Colorado. But my career track led me into this. I started with education after I got my degree and my teaching license in Colorado, but I got an opportunity to come out to California and start to work in marine biology, which was really my passion. I really love this. So after a number of years of working in education, I got into a different form of education. Here at the Aquarium of the Pacific, I'm what's called an informal educator, meaning we're not in a classroom strictly. We can go out into the galleries. We're on a whale watch boat. We have an outreach vehicle that we take out to schools too. So there's a lot of opportunities for us to educate our guests. But I specifically work with the whale program. So some of the fun things that we get to do here, I mean, it looks like this is what I do all day, every day. There's a lot more of doing this at the computer. As a supervisor, I have a lot of different responsibilities. I do sometimes go out on the whale watches, but we also have to train our new naturalists, the people that are going to be on the boats way more often than I am. And they need to know what they need to do on the boat, what kind of materials that they need to bring, what kind of styles of questions and language should they be using while they're narrating and educating our public. So that's the cool stuff I get to do, is where I'm on the boat being the naturalist too. But running the photo ID internship is really what's really fun about this. I get to be a mentor and a leader to people that want to get into this field too. And we bring in people from all sorts of backgrounds that want to go into the photo ID internship. So they do some of this, where they're out on the boat, photographing, cataloging all the sighting information about the whales that we see there. And then they have to process that information. So all the data collection that they're doing, it doesn't just sit somewhere. We have to make sure that it is usable for the next group of researchers that wants to take a look at it. So we partner with two different groups here at the Aquarium of the Pacific. Harbor Breeze Cruises is the whale watch company that we go out on the boats with. And then we also send our scientific data to Cascadia Research Collective. They're a group out of Olympia, Washington. And we send them all of the year's worth of information all at once. So there's a lot of stuff that we have to prepare for them. But what do people on the whale watches do? So we have our photo ID intern, and we have the naturalists. Here's one of our naturalists hanging out with our guests. If you look real closely, you can see they have a sperm whale tooth and some krill in their hands, comparing teeth and food to our guests so that we can see what kinds of things, what adaptations, what body parts do the animals have. This is a blue whale right next to one of the boats. Not right next to, because, I mean, there's a good distance between these animals. But they're right next to the whale watch boats, and we can just watch them from the front of the ship. Now, what I personally like about whales a lot, that was a really good question on our live chat stream. I love the size, the beauty of the animals. My favorite thing is when I'm standing about right there on the boat with my microphone, and you're waiting for the whale to come up, you're waiting, and then you just hear this, and they get to the surface, and that first blow when they exhale, you can hear them often before you see them. And that always invigorates me. I always get excited that we get a chance to go into this space right here and watch the animals and be able to observe them in their normal habitat and just see how big they are compared to the boat. The boat that we're on is an 85-foot boat. That is not as big as a blue whale. There are blue whales that get over 90 feet long, and that just is impressive to me, that we're on such a large, very technologically advanced catamaran, and that whale can be even bigger. How many species of whales are there? That number does change every once in a while. There's over 70 species of toothed whales, and there's over 15 species of whales with baleen. So the research that scientists come up with, and they learn more about the animals, their genetics, and their relationships to other species, we sometimes have to redefine which one is which. So if we look at this dolphin right here, this is the common dolphin. We see them a lot. Now, at one point, they had just one species, no difference between them. And then we decided, as a scientific community, they're just different enough. They're subspecies. So not really separate species, but we should describe them differently. Same thing is going on with the bottlenose dolphin right now. Bottlenose dolphins are being investigated to see if this one small group should really be described as a different kind of bottlenose. There's been 2 species of whale that were discovered just in the last 10 years. They were genetically different enough that we had to redescribe who they're actually most related to. Now, if you want to see what some of the animals that we're seeing on the boats are, this is a great example of some of the toothed whales that we see. And one of our questions was, what's the most inspiring things I've seen? Orcas. I mean, a lot of people really love orca. They're a beautiful animal. We don't get them in Southern California too often. But I had a wonderful opportunity where I was out training a new naturalist on their very first time out there by themselves, which everyone's jealous of because they saw orcas on their first day. That doesn't happen very often. But we saw a pod, 2 pods actually, of orcas, one group of orca, and there was a baby in the pod. And it was a very, very new baby. And the reason we could tell is kind of like this picture here. The skin color around the eye patch and the white chin is yellowy. It's kind of like, if you compare it to humans, when humans have a condition called jaundice, our liver's not processing things like it's supposed to, and our skin can change coloration. Well, that's more because the orca hasn't really eaten anything outside when it was out in the ocean. It's nursing from mom. They're mammals like us. So their skin color has to kind of develop and change in the first few weeks that they're born. I had never seen a baby orca that young before, so that was an amazing opportunity. And our guests, we got to talk about all of that with our guests that were on the boat too. So that is one of my favorite stories. I have a lot, but that's one of my favorite stories about whale watches. One of my other really big time favorites is getting to study blue whales. So we help Cascadia Research Collective by photographing the whales. These are all photos that our interns have taken. These are not internet photos that we stole from the internet. These are all photos that our staff have been able to take on our website. On our whale watches. And we have links to some of our older blogs on our website too that you can read up on some of the things that we've seen in the past. But by studying the blue whales, these spots, these blotchy patterns on them, we can match who is who. Now, if you think of humpbacks, they've been doing this for a while with these white patterns on the underside of their tail, their fluke. And we can use the same process and technique to do this with blue whales. Now, I had an interesting question. What's my favorite thing about nature? That's kind of hard to narrow down. But for me, my background is in biology. I love learning anything I can about the natural world. All the new things that we can just discover together and that we can explore by being out in these habitats and just respecting the space the animals are in and then photographing them, recording them, doing like the naturalists did long before we had picture technology where they're drawing the stuff in their books. Everything was brand new to them if they landed on a new space. That's one of the things that I love is I can go into a lot of different areas of nature, go on a hike on the weekends if I want to, and find new and different special things to be able to explore. Now, this whale down here, this is also a humpback. One of the telltale signs, if you want to know how to identify different species out in the water, humpbacks are very acrobatic. They don't have a very tall dorsal fin, and they like to stick their tail up when they're about to dive. We call this fluking. So their fluke, their tail usually comes way up into the air because they're going on a very deep dive to go and find food. Blue whales do this a lot too. They don't always stick their tails up, but they do often stick their tail up. Now this whale right here, this darker colored whale, has a very tall dorsal fin. That's a little different than our humpback friend right here. The fin whale has a tall dorsal fin, how they get their name, but they never stick their tail up. Well, not really never. There's 2 individuals that we have found in Southern California that will stick their tail up when they dive. And we know that there's 2 different ones because the same process right here. We take 2 pictures of the animals, we compare them side to side, and we can tell who is who. Now, some of the really fun things we've gotten to do. So a lot of questions I receive as the boat program supervisor is, what's some of your favorite things you've ever seen? I gathered the pictures of that right here because this is a lot of fun stuff. So down here, we have a couple of different sperm whales. A little bit different view. This is the sperm whale dorsal ridge. They don't have much of a fin. It's a little smaller. But we saw a large pod of sperm whales one time, which is extremely rare. I would love to see another type of toothed whale similar to the sperm whale that dives really, really deep. And I haven't had a chance yet because they don't really hang out in the channel between Catalina Island and us here in Long Beach. They're called beaked whales. Cuvier's beaked whale is one of the deepest diving animals on the planet, and to be able to see them, I would really love to do that because they are an interesting animal. They have a very different shape. They don't look like the whales and dolphins that we think of, but they're considered a type of whale. My favorite types of whales are kind of on the last two pages. This one here and the previous page. But right here, this is a blue whale with her baby. Now, blue whales, I do love them because of their sheer enormity. They're so big that it is just amazing and awe-inspiring to get to see something that large in nature. And we don't get to see something like that here on land. We get to see things that are similar to our size. Or even if you go over to Africa or Asia, you may get to see very large animals like elephants and giraffes. But we don't really get to see anything bigger than that. And the whales are just amazing to get to be out on the water and view them. So there's a lot of variety that we alone here in Long Beach might get to see. Then it's not just whales, and it's not just dolphins. There's some other really fun things that we've spotted. We will see seals and sea lions pretty regularly. They're out in the kelp forest habitat very often. But one of the really cool things we get asked is, do you ever see sharks? We get to see sharks. I think I've counted 7 species of sharks that we've seen in total just here in Southern California. And this hammerhead was spotted during the summer. During the summers, they come up from the more tropical waters below us in the south, and they hang out for a little bit. They don't hang out at the surface too long because they're not mammals. They breathe water. So they're going to be just a little bit at the surface and then go on their way. My favorite bird that we get to see, and I do like seeing the birds, are the Heermann's gulls. I love the color patterns, the colorful beak, their feet are brightly colored. They're just so different from the average seagull that we would think of when we think of a seagull. And so growing up in Colorado, I didn't get to see this kind of bird. So because of that, they are one of my favorite animals to see that's not a whale. One of the crowd favorites is this one right here. Seems like it's kind of an interesting looking fish. This is the ocean sunfish. They're fun. If you've ever seen the thing awkward turtle, I like to do awkward mola mola or awkward sunfish. They are awkward in the water. They're very big fish. They don't really look like they have a tail. They kind of outgrow their tail. And then they swim with these top and bottom fins, these ventral and dorsal fins. So they're a very, very cool animal. Here's another shark that we got to see. We have seen white sharks in the area too. California, Southern California, is a white shark nursery. So there's been a couple times where we've seen great whites out in the water. So we have a wide variety of very lovely animals that we get to view here in Southern California, just on our whale watches. And again, these are all pictures that we've taken from our whale watches. These were not collected from the internet. And I sometimes have to live through my interns because I'm not on the boat all the time. So I didn't get to see this particular hammerhead or this particular shark here. I had to kind of enjoy just the energy of our interns as they come back in and it's like, oh my gosh, did you understand what we saw today? And I love that they get to experience that too. So it's a wonderful opportunity that we offer through all of our internships here, people to learn how to do these careers at a zoo or aquarium setting. But that program, what do those interns do? It's not just photographing the animals. There's a lot of data manipulation and working with the photos themselves to see who is who in a catalog of whales. So they do take pictures while they're out on the whale watches. They're recording the coordinate of where the thing is. So if you ever had your phone or GPS unit out and you could find out where you were, it has those north and west, or if you're in a different hemisphere or quarter of the world, east or southern coordinates, you can record where anything is. And we have to use their dorsal fins, their tailstock, which is the part right before their tail, it connects to the body. It's kind of like describing the ankle of your leg. It's just before the foot. The tailstock is just before their tail. And then we have to figure out who they are. There's a catalog. I usually describe this as if we took any random picture of you while you were walking to the park, let's say, and I had your school yearbook, and I had to compare them. The picture we randomly found of you any one time to this very known picture of you, and figure out, is that the same person? Now, with us, we might say, yeah, that should be pretty easy, but let's test our skills. I have a couple of pictures here that we're going to see how good are your photo ID skills. So I'm going to step out of the frame so everybody can get a good picture. Now, these are both pictures that our interns took. You can see in the corner the date of when they were taken, 2011, and the one on the left side is 2013. Have you figured out that these are the same whale? It's not always easy, I'm not going to lie. Sometimes the photos are not very good quality, but it's the only photo we have. We have to work with that one. And sometimes they're really beautifully clear. So let's point out where those things are. I mean, it's kind of dark right here, but you can also manipulate the photos. You can brighten the photos or change things on them. But you look for blotchy patterns in their skin. Now, on blue whales, these patterns are permanent. They might get new scratches or scars, but these spots are like their fingerprints. So just like we use our fingerprints to identify people, we can use the patterns on their body to identify them. Now, one of our guest questions was about the sharks. Since we did bring them up, let's answer a couple of their questions. They asked how many sharks are endangered. Well, there's over 400 species, about 470 species of sharks, and 2.4% are critically endangered, meaning we really want to protect that species because there's a chance that we may not have them on the planet anymore. 3.2% are endangered. That's kind of like the warning lights are going. We need to do more to make sure we protect a species that is endangered. And then the vulnerable and near threatened mean that there's a chance if we don't do the right things, we don't monitor their population, we don't change our behaviors to make sure that we're allowing them to live in their habitat freely, or even do things to help them repopulate, they could become endangered. So almost 25% of all types of sharks are at the point where they could start to become so small in number that we need to be careful that we don't accidentally let this species disappear from the planet. Oh, I had a very good question. What is the transition from a teacher to a whale watch naturalist? It does seem weird, right? Instead of being in front of a classroom talking to young minds, I do so many different things around the aquarium. It was kind of by accident. When I first moved to California, I wasn't sure if I wanted to stay in the classroom setting of education, but I still wanted to help people learn. And I started volunteering at the Aquarium in the Pacific. I loved it so much volunteering here, I want to get a job at the aquarium. And I just slowly went into the different roles in the education department to become the naturalist and then the person that helps train all the naturalists. And I loved that opportunity of getting other people to be out there and helping each other learn, that I really wanted to build up those career skills so that I could become a program coordinator or supervisor for this. All right, next challenge. You've had a couple minutes to really look at this whale, so let's see if you can match them up. Can you tell if they're the same whale? Which parts would you want to pick? Which blotches or patterns would you say you're going to use to help match this whale together? Now, there's a couple that we circled, but I want to see if you figured it out too. All right, let's reveal which patterns we used. So we have this little spot right here, and down here, back behind the fin over there, almost looks like quotation marks on the back of this whale. We can use that. We can use this sequence of spots right here to match to this whale. Even though this picture on your left side is a little more blurry, the spots are still pretty distinct. You can figure out who is whom. So between all of these different patterns, the shape of the dorsal fin, you could even use this kind of almost triangle spot right here with two dots in the middle to be the same as that one. So there's a lot of spots I ask our interns to really look at. Pick at least 3 to 5 spots that you would say these are the same, and then we can tag the picture as the name of that animal. All right. Now this one is a super tough one. I'm going to let you look at it for a couple minutes off screen, and I'll answer a couple more questions. Have I ever seen a blue whale scuba diving? I think I might scream so much into my regulator, I would not be able to breathe if I got to experience that. And that's a happy scream. That's not like an, oh my gosh, I'm so scared. That would be, my life is complete kind of scare. I am not scuba certified, but if I were and that opportunity arose, I would definitely love to be able to see one. Now, whales and mammals in general in the ocean are protected. The Marine Mammal Protection Act means we can't just go up and touch them. So I wouldn't just want to go find a blue whale to go swim next to. One, because they significantly outsize me. I'm only 5'7", and they're 80 plus feet long, so you have to be very careful around them. Uh, but it would be a very amazing opportunity to have a whale come up near you while you're scuba diving. Now, the next question somebody asked is a really important one. Can whales go extinct? And yes, any species that's alive on the planet now could potentially go extinct. Sometimes it's natural. There's animals that they don't have really well-developed or positive adaptations to make sure they do stay alive. But then there's other animals where there's things happen, often caused by people, that don't really allow that animal to survive. So as long as we're doing our part to be responsible, be appropriate in our environments, let the animals be the animals in the environment. We can fish and we can go swimming and we can go boating, but we have to respect that as a space that animals live in. So we can do the fun recreational things that we want to do, but if we're behaving responsibly, we'll do things that make sure the animals stick around. All right, have you figured out if this whale's a match yet? Now the spots kind of are tough right here, but there's a sneaky little spot that you can use. This scar right here on this whale is way over here. And it's a scar that goes over the top of the body of the whale. So that kind of helps us too, is that you might be able to see it from the left or the right side. And then these little blotches back here can help confirm your sighting. They may not look exactly the same because as a whale is just swimming through the water, their skin looks a little bit different than if they're arching their back and they're diving in the water. So sometimes the way the whale is sitting in the water makes it tougher for us to try and do a match. Now, we're all doing this with just our eyeballs, but there are people out there who they don't necessarily want to go whale watching and take pictures of whales, but they are really good at programming. And they are writing programs that help the computer solve this problem. And then it makes it a little easier for the person to go through and confirm that these matches have been happening. So you don't have to love whales to help whale biologists. You could do any number of other skills in your life and help them in some way. Engineers help design equipment for them. The technology people help write programming for them. And there's so many other things that you can do. You could just have fun going out on a whale watch and join us. And we can have all the amazing discussions with you, and you can just help us find the whales out in the ocean, because we're also not using sonar to find them. Just extra eyes watching the water help us look for these animals so that we can monitor them and take their pictures. All right. This is a little bit closer view of those spots, but that's okay. So why is this role important? Why would you want to be a naturalist, a narrator, an educator out in nature? Well, the education factor is really important. If you don't know anything about the animals there, it's hard to understand the environment, hard to understand the relationships between the different animals. So we're out here as naturalists talking to the public. You go to a national park, there's park rangers that can help do this too. You go out to the beach, there's what are called docents that help talk about the animals down there. But educating, learning is really what helps everybody understand the complexity of our natural world. So why would you want to be able to identify whales? That's a really good question. We want to know more about how many there are. It's hard to count them. One, they're in the ocean. That makes it tougher. We have to wait for them to come up to the surface. But two, if we don't know how many there are, we don't know what kinds of things we need to do to ensure that it's a healthy sized population, or even where should we be in relation to the whales. One of the really interesting things that our program has done here is through the data collection, we were able to help the lawmakers move the shipping lane. Now, the container ships that move into the LA and Long Beach port, they had a specific space that they had to drive through. Just like you or I would go on the highway, there's a specific lane we have to stick to. If you don't drive in your lane, it's dangerous. You might get hurt, somebody else might get hurt, so they make the ships do that too. Well, we found out through the data collection, the ships were going through a space that was often frequented by whales. And if we didn't go out and monitor the individuals and the numbers of animals that would show up in that area, we would never know that hey, we actually should move this lane a little bit farther away from the shoreline, and we can be more mindful of the fact that there's animals that live here, and we can avoid running into them. If you live in an area that has overpasses, where something goes over the highway, they've created animal overpasses. Grassy, rocky, just bridges that go across a highway for the animals, like the deer, to be able to migrate across that space. So we couldn't move the highway in the countryside, but we could add something for the other animals to move across it. Well, in the water, it's a whole lot easier just to put your boat in different space, so that was the solution we came up with. So that kind of leads into studying the trends. We want to know more about who's where, and the ones that migrate, that move north or south to have babies, we want to know about that path. Where are they going? How many of them are doing this at any point in time so that we can be a little bit better about how we behave in their environment. How many whales have gone extinct? That's a very tough question to answer. Whales have been around for, I want to say, at least 40 to 50 million years. But how many different kinds have gone extinct, we may not know because we have to go explore and find those fossils. So if you ever been to the museum, dinosaur fossils. Dinosaurs are awesome too. You remember the size of dinosaur fossils. That's one of the things I love about whales. But we don't know if they've gone extinct unless we can find those fossils. In some spaces, that's a little tough. Now, there are scientists that found out that the gray whale used to live in the Atlantic Ocean. Right now, we have gray whales only in the Pacific Ocean. But there's been a few that have been spotted randomly in other areas in our modern times. But many years ago, millions of years ago, there was a gray whale type of whale that lived in the Atlantic. And we found fossils that it would live there, but there's none that live there now. So it takes a lot of discovery and a lot of effort from scientists to go find those evidences that an animal used to live somewhere. Are whales affected by COVID-19? Not to my knowledge. One, you got to keep that social distancing, right? And guess what? The National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration says we have to stay at least 100 feet away from a whale. So that's definitely bigger than the 6-foot limit that we want to keep between us and our friends right now. Good question to ask. But we do wonder, we're mammals just like whales are. Do we both get sick by the same things? Sometimes we don't know. It's hard to find out because I've never known if a whale sneezed on me, but I do know that a whale has exhaled on me. That is a fun experience. It seems really gross, but it is kind of fun. We consider it good luck in our realm of the world. So we know that we should be mindful of being naturalists, being biologists, or just being out in that space. So what would you want to do if you wanted to study whales in a similar way that we do here at the aquarium? Now remember, you can do this in a lot of different ways. You can be any person, and you can go out and take a picture of a whale. You get the coordinate of where they are, and you can send that to scientists that do like what we think of, scientists in a lab or at a computer doing those things. Well, you can be an average person doing anything out in the world and help scientists. But if you want this specific job, you really want to have a background in biology, some level of biology. My degree is only a bachelor's of biology, and there's a lot of people that get more advanced degrees, but it kind of depends on what you want to do. If you do want to get a master's or PhD, that'll often get you into new opportunities working at the university level. If you don't want to work at a university, you may not need that master's or PhD. But there is a lot more studying that you do. It takes a little bit more effort to get them, but it can pay off because you become more specialized in what you are studying. So don't feel like if you wanted one, you shouldn't get one. Or if you don't want to get one, you'll never be able to. There's people in marine biology that have every level of degree. So just be aware that if you want to work in certain fields or in certain spaces, you might need that advanced degree. Now, work-related experience is super important. Whenever I talk to my interns, because it's a learning opportunity for them, I don't require that they have any photographic experience or any whale watching experience. I do sometimes ask if they're okay with being in a moving vehicle a lot because you're on a boat in the water. You might get seasick. I get seasick, and I'm the boat program supervisor. So it's okay if you do, just as long as we know what it takes to make sure that you can be on that boat. But that internship gives you that opportunity. You get much better at taking the photos of an animal moving in the water while the boat is moving in the water too. That is very challenging. But then also learning how that data is used and processed so that you understand how a database, how a lot of sequences of numbers are used to study a specific thing. So if you want this kind of job, these are some of the things that you want to keep in mind. Now remember, you can help scientists in any way. I was never a field biologist in my undergraduate degree in my bachelor's. I started as a teacher. So different skills really do help you. Photography was always a hobby of mine, so it was not too difficult for me to slide into that kind of role. But remember, when you're doing an internship or volunteering, you can start fresh. You can learn all the skills you need from certain institutions that do that. And there's a lot of people right now that are studying whales. So there's a lot of opportunities that you might find to help scientists be out on the water studying these animals. Now, if there's any last-minute questions, please feel free to ask in the comment section. I know our friends here in the studio are trying to keep up with the live chat feed. Everybody's talking a mile a minute, so if you haven't had your question answered, please be patient. We do really appreciate everybody tuning in to our online academy right now, and thank you so much for joining us. Oh, wait, we got a couple more questions. Can you tell a whale by its sound? This is a great question. Scientists do use a special microphone in the water called a hydrophone to listen to them. And we can tell species apart by how they sound. Just like you could tell you or your friends apart by who's talking in a room with your eyes closed, whales can tell who's supposed to sound like what. And it's because they sound very different. Now, it's not sounds that we often can pick up with our ears. The blue whale is the loudest thing on the planet. It's, I believe, over 190, 95 decibels, which is much louder than a jet airplane. But we're not all in the ocean hearing sounds like a jet airplane because it's at a level that we can't hear. If you've ever had a dog whistle and it has a really high pitch, not everybody can hear that high of a pitch. Well, whales speak in a very low pitch, so low that our ears do not hear it. Those sounds can travel many hundreds of miles, and they can tell who they are by what species, by the sound that they're making. So when whales are trying to communicate and figure out where are more whales like me, or even they're trying to find a mate, they're listening to specific calls or frequencies, the pitch, the high or low sound of that call to figure out who is who. Now, if you think of whale sounds, which one comes to mind? It's usually a humpback whale. That is not a call that's for long distance communication, but it's a call from a male to a female saying, hey, I would like a date. So some of the sounds that we can hear are at a tone that they're trying to communicate for other reasons than for other long distance purposes. One of the things you should do is go to our website, or you can even Google it through the computers, is the Whales Voices in the Sea exhibit. We helped create and partner with a few other institutions, and it really helps you listen to the sounds that they can make, see what kind of species live here locally, but also get a little more information about what those calls are doing. So if you want to listen to more really cool whale noises, go to the Whales Voices in the Sea online app, either through our webpage or you can find it if you just search on the internet. It's a really great opportunity. Oh, I was just told it's been linked to our online academy. So if you want to learn more about it, I recommend checking it out. Now, what we're doing here, this is not a space with whales. Sorry. But, this is one of the things we have here at the aquarium. One of the other ways that you can learn while you're checking out our online academy is you can check out our live webcams. We have exhibits here in our aquarium that have a lot of cameras in them, and you can just peruse them as you would like to. This is our tallest exhibit at about 27 feet of water. It is not our biggest, it's the second biggest. It's at about 142,000 gallons of water. So still a pretty big space. And this is one of my favorites to check out, especially in the late afternoon when the sunlight's coming in at the right angle. You can really get to see some really beautiful stuff. Ooh, do manatees make noises? I am not sure. I do think they have to call to each other in some way because the water they live in is a little murky. It's not easy to see through. And they're often in the bottom sifting and getting the seagrasses and little plants that they eat because they're vegetarians. They're what we call an herbivore. They are in that space and they kick up a lot of the sand and silt, so it's not always easy to see stuff. But I personally have never heard one, but we should probably find out. We could probably have one of our friends in the studio look that up and help post that answer for our friends out on the online internet. Now, feel free to check out any of the webcams that you see at our aquarium website because there's a lot of really interesting stuff to check out here. This is one of my favorite fish in this exhibit. This bright orange one is the Garibaldi. It's our state ocean fish. And they're kind of a cranky fish. I don't know if that's why I like them or not, but they're territorial. If you get too close to their space, they will come right up to you and in some cases poke you in the goggles so that you get out of their space. All right. Thank you so much for joining me today. Oh, it is good? All right. So if you want to check out something else that's happening today at the aquarium, our penguin beach, which is our penguin habitat, is going to be live at 3:30 Pacific Standard Time. So if you want to check out our penguin cam, there's going to be stuff happening at our penguin exhibit. These are the Magellanic penguins who do live in South America, all the way from Chile around to Argentina, and they're a really fun species of bird here. They live in a California-style ecosystem down in South America, so it's okay how we have them housed here. It may not look like, oh, they should have ice. They would never see ice. Don't worry about that. But check out our penguin webcam at 3:30, our penguin beach at the June Keys Penguin Habitat. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a good rest of your afternoon, and thanks for joining us on our Career Connections episode.